Hey everyone, and welcome back to another episode of Play Better Poker with Learn WPT. My name is Katie Stone and I'm a Learn WPT instructor. And with me today is three-time WPT champion, season 19 player of the year, and newest Learn WPT instructor, Brian Altman. Thank you so much for joining us and welcome to the team.
Thanks for having me, and I'm really excited to be part of the team.
Yeah, you know, you don't even know this, but behind closed doors, I have a nickname for you.
What's
you are
that?
The Prince of the World Poker Tour.
Prince? Prince.
This is, well, I mean, because we have to understand, in the grand scheme of things, there's going to be, greater titles and stuff, right?
Yes.
But this is my nickname for you because, we are kind of in your house almost. I feel like every WPT tour stop is kind of your house. Do you feel like that?
I definitely feel a little sense of that. I feel, especially here in Florida, it definitely feels like home, kind of like I don't live in Florida, but it does feel like a home court advantage.
Yeah, and that's huge,
and,
right?
Being familiar with the venue, being familiar with the player pool.
The structures, the schedules.
Having this level of familiarity, I think, is really a really nice advantage when playing poker, coming back to a stop that you've been to before.
Yeah, for sure. And so we're down here at the Seminole Hard Rock in Southern Florida, Lucky Hearts Poker Open. We're kind of towards the end of, finished week one, 2,200 tomorrow. You've already played the 6 max. And then the main is this weekend, the $3,500, $2 million championship guarantee, which there are still Saddies running. So, anybody who's in the area is still able to come and Saddie their way in. Do you play those Saddies? What's your view on Saddies? Because I know, somebody like you are very visible on the World Poker Tour. I feel like every stop, there's some deep run of yours that the world is being notified. But how do you kind of balance your big events, like the big, really important events, with the prelim events? Because, specifically down here in Florida, these fields are kind of large. The fields are bigger than they've ever been, I think. And some of those events are really, really valuable. $600, multi-day events, the big Saddies, 25-seat guarantees. But they take time, and they take kind of mental equity and bandwidth, so to speak, away from something. So how do you kind of juggle, and how do you decide your schedule, what you're going to play?
So when I think about my schedule, about what I'm going to play, I look at the main tour, the WPT main, and then I'll see
when that is, day 1A, day 1B, when day 2 is.
Exactly, because that's the primary event target that I'm going down there for. It's the best structure of all the tournaments that we'll be running. It's the deepest stack,
the biggest prize pool.
All the reasons why you want to
the Mike
get down there.
Sexton Champions Cup, baby, let's go.
And so when I look at if I'm going to do a poker trip, I look at the main event, and then I look at the prelims right before, and I look at the post-lims after.
Oh yeah, I didn't even think about that. Because I would think you're so tired and you're kind of like that you're done. But yeah, there's good post-lims too. Yeah,
absolutely. And so when I come down for a poker trip, I'm there to play. I'm dialed in.
Yeah.
So if I get knocked out of an event, I'm prepared to hop into the next one. Yep. And that's, as a professional poker player, that's how I approach traveling to different events. You need to put yourself in as many positive situations as you can, and when I say that, I mean play. If you think you're have a positive expectation in a tournament, you play it.
Yep.
And if you get knocked out, you losing a previous tournament does not affect your ability to play a future one and make good decisions.
Interesting. Talk about that a little bit. So you kind of, and I kind of look at things maybe a little bit similarly. So tell me if this kind of is the same. So, and I kind of look at this like with every hand too. I kind of look at every hand as its own puzzle. So its own unique individual puzzle, right? Because after every hand, something's changed, stack sizes have changed, and you now have history with a player. That's changed too. They have more information. Maybe you went to Showdown. All the other players now have seen the cards. That's changed too. Knowing what they've seen how they've seen you play the hand or whatever. How do you kind of like adjust in situations like that?
You know, tournament poker in particular is very dynamic. The stacks are always changing. The players of the tables change over time as players get knocked out, as tables break. Your position changes each hand as the dealer button and the blinds shift. So you kind of have to just take this situation for what it is.
Yep.
With all of these variables that are changing, and make the best decisions that you can, given the information that you have and given the cards that you have. And so I try not let previous hands, if something doesn't go my way,
tilt you.
Tilt me, yeah.
And that's that affects a lot of people.
Absolutely. And I think that's something that players that are new sometimes struggle with. I even see some professionals struggle with it as well.
Yeah.
And it's something, it's kind of like mastering yourself.
Sure.
Like
the game inside is just as difficult as the game that we're playing on the table, essentially.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Like the toughest opponent is one in your head.
Is yourself.
Yeah.
Oh no, 1,000,000%. Like that's 1,000,000%. I'm right there, and that's like, I feel like that's also been kind of it stifles you a little bit at times, right? Because if you're too hard on yourself, and that can prevent you from moving forward in something that you're doing.
Absolutely.
And so that's kind of why I like to box things up and make, like you're saying, you're able to go from one tournament to the next and not really, let your decisions, or maybe made a mistake or had a bad experience or something, affect. So my kind of way to do that is just like individualize everything. Like, this is just one problem right here, and then this is the next problem, and then kind of taking the same thing, as a tournament. Okay, this was, one tournament I played last night, and maybe I, made a shove that I wasn't supposed to make, or maybe I bet too large on the river with, I was telling you earlier, maybe I have a little spot I need to look at, maybe I went a little too large on the river. But like you said, it's so important to kind of box that up. This is your experience, learn from the experience, so that when you're in a higher equity spot later, or where you stand to win more money later, you can kind of look back and be like, oh yeah, I made that mistake a few years ago, but I'm not going to make it again.
Exactly. I think it's all about, I think playing poker is just a continuing learning process. You're refining your craft.
Yep.
Everyone makes mistakes, no matter how good you are, and you can do two things. You can try and learn from it, or you can ignore it and keep making those mistakes. And I make mistakes all the time. I try and learn from them, and just do that over and over again, and then you start to see some growth as a player.
Now, do you think that is you, like your personality, or do you think that poker, just by the nature of being poker and the fact that it's a game, there are people, it changes, people change, people aren't robots, you can't really predict what they're going to do, you can't force them to do anything, but do you think that that's just your nature as a person, or do you think that poker has kind of, in your experience, in your career, learning the game and figuring things out and playing, do you think that that's kind of really encouraged that, to where maybe that kind of, helps other areas of your life, other interests you have, where you kind of take some of the skills that are helpful in poker and apply them to other areas of your life?
I think that, I don't know, I think it is part of my personality, but I think it's in terms of not getting super emotional with winning or losing. Not everyone is like that, and I think it's something that I've had to work on, to be able to.
Oh, interesting. Yeah.
To be able to compartmentalize winning and losing, and just really just trying to focus on the decision-making process, because at the end of the day, you can make good decisions and you can lose. You can make bad decisions and you can win. And the inputs, you don't always receive the direct outputs of the inputs that you put in. So I guess what I'm trying to say is, you can make good decisions and still lose. Yeah. So because poker is a game with missing information and an element of luck, especially in the short term. So you kind of just have to make the best decisions you can.
Sure. Yeah, and I think one of the things that, kind of in that same vein, one of the things that poker has kind of helped me with is, you mentioned luck and those decisions, and poker kind of forces us to not look at one particular hand or one decision, right? It teaches us to look at a range of scenarios and a range of hands. Same thing, like if you lose one poker tournament, you're playing live poker tournament, and you lose, and maybe you play another live poker tournament next weekend and you lose, and then you continue playing poker tournaments for 6 months and you're losing, you might feel really bad about yourself, but really you shouldn't, because poker teaches us to kind of zoom out and really take a good amount of, it takes a lot to win in a poker tournament. It takes a lot to get through those fields. So realizing that, losing, 10 poker tournaments in a row, 15 poker tournaments in a row, 20 poker tournaments in a row is pretty normal.
Very normal.
That's a big realization, especially for new players and especially for inexperienced players. And I think that in and of itself is a really big shock to them. It's a really very surprising. And once they understand that, that kind of does trickle over into other areas of your life. And I always use an example of, like let's say you get a flat tire, and you get 2 flat tires in 2 weeks or something. And then maybe a month later you get another flat tire. And if this person's not a poker player, they might think, oh, I'm the most unlucky person in the world, I should get a new car. And they, maybe they incur expenses, or maybe they incur mental anguish because they think they're cursed or they think whatever. But I say if that person was a poker player, their view would be like, well, if I get a flat tire every day for the next 7 days in a row, it's pretty normal, like it could definitely happen, and then understanding that, it just kind of resets you, and you don't have to waste any energy on thinking ill of yourself, or thinking you did something wrong, or thinking that there was something in your control, which there wasn't. It's just like, sometimes it just happens, and that's kind of what
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I think people first starting to play poker, especially tournaments, the have to adjust to the realization that in poker tournaments, the nature of them, only 15% or so of the people get paid out.
15% on average.
So you're going to be losing most of the time.
Yeah.
And it's a tough concept to wrap your head around.
Yeah.
But when you finally get that nice score, you see why it's so appealing to play and so fun, and the excitement down the stretch when you have chips and things are going well. But in order to experience that, you have to endure the times when things don't go your way. You don't get above starting stack, and that's all very normal regardless of skill level, and no one is immune to it. Yeah,
for sure. That's something that I tell a lot of new players is, you're going to lose more in the beginning than you win, and that's okay. That's very normal. That is, don't let that deter you from continuing to play or continuing to try to improve your game. And I like to the things that I find that I am not very good at, I just like to attack them. And so I like to find ways that I can improve them, and whether that's talking to a friend or talking to another Learn WPT instructor, maybe a hand situation, or maybe I'm having a question about a play at a certain stack depth or at a certain stage of the tournament. It's helpful to be able to know what you're going to do. Talk to some friends, have some resources. Maybe watch some videos. There's a lot of really great strategy content on Learn WPT that I like to go through, especially like before a final table or something. Just kind of refresh my memory on how to play, because there's final tables play a little bit differently, as we know, than the beginning stages of a tournament. What do you do as far as, like, let's say you're, you come across a hand or a situation or kind of a spot that you maybe have a question about, or do you even have questions about spots anymore? I don't even know. But I mean, it's a very legitimate question. Like, geez. But what do you do? Like, do you kind of like just put it in your and just be like, I need to chat with a few friends about this, or I just kind of need to do some work on this hand? What is your kind of your your go-to preparation regarding poker study and poker work, what does that kind of look like for you? Are you doing it outside of the tour? Are you doing it on tour? Are you scheduling specific time, like you're taking 2 weeks off to just kind of, get in the lab and talk to the guys? Take me into that world a little bit, please.
Okay, so while I'm at a poker stop and while I'm playing, I'll write down on my notepad.
You do write down.
Yeah, I'll write down.
You?
Yeah, and
Okay.
mostly it's just pre-flop spots that I want to brush up on. So I'll write down a list of things, and then before I go to bed, I will just
same
check them.
day. So same day. Okay.
That's
most of the time.
That's one big thing I do, and I think it's really helpful. And it may not seem like much. It may only be, I may be able to get it done in 10 minutes, maybe 15 minutes, but doing that over and over again really reinforces these fundamentals.
Sure.
And when you have the fundamentals down, the game just plays a lot more easy. The game comes a lot more easy when you have stronger fundamentals and you know what you're supposed to be playing from what position, what hands, what depths, how aggressive you're supposed to be, and stuff like that.
Yeah.
The other thing that I do is I'll study with a couple friends, and they're we'll use some softwares and stuff like that to kind of run hands and see how a computer would play against itself. And I mean, in live poker, a lot of the human players do not really play like computers, but being able to learn how a computer would play against itself serves as a nice baseline. And once you know that baseline, then you can make assumptions about humans that you're playing against.
Different player profiles.
And different player profiles, how you think this particular player type is going to play.
Sure.
Are they going to be more bluffy? Are they going to be more call-y?
Sure.
Are they going to have as much aggression on this street? And so a lot of it is, I mean, ultimately, I think it just comes down to putting the reps in and continually looking at stuff and just repeating the process. It's not like you look at one thing one day and then you just master it. Sometimes it does take some time to click, and just reinforcing and putting in the reps can do a lot over time. You may not see it right away, but over time, you start to recognize certain spots, certain situations, certain boards. And you're
just more confident.
And you're like, oh yeah, I think I should bet smaller on this board. I think I should bet bigger. I think these are the hands I want to play aggressively.
Sure.
So ultimately, I think I keep repeating myself, but it's just really about putting in the repetitions and gaining confidence.
Yeah, and I think too the nice thing you mentioned about that too is that you've got some friends that you work with too. You've got a group, kind of a community of sorts, and I think that that's something that's really, really important for any kind of poker player. It doesn't matter what level you are, if you're just entering the game or if you're playing recreationally, playing maybe a couple times a year, going to Vegas, coming down to Florida at the Hard Rock Seminole for the $2 million championship guarantee this weekend. Having those friends around you is really important because, what happens to me is, I also will do a very similar process, have, a couple friends and, learn WPT instructors, kind of get together and, look at some hands and stuff. And then something will occur and a situation will occur on on the board, in game. And I will actually remember a conversation that we've had and I can almost hear them, the conversation going on about, oh, it was a very similar board. This is this, small sizing here or larger sizing here. And I don't want to say I've got like voices in my head or something, but there kind of sometimes are voices, in my head where I'm playing back. It's just kind of how my brain works. Blame it on the chess. Playing back the analysis almost, and that really, like you were saying, you're putting in the reps, and then you eventually it materializes, and you see the fruits of your labor, so to speak. Sometimes you might catch me in the middle of a hand even smiling or laughing because I'm replaying, like I'll remember the situation, like, oh yeah, we looked at this hand, and oh yeah, it was so fun, and I know it, and I'm just so confident, and that's. I personally get a lot of joy from those experiences. I know people think I'm a little nuts in that way, but I get a lot of joy from seeing something, working on something, figuring it out, thinking I've got it figured out in my head, and then actually seeing it like in play, and then just knowing like, oh man, I got this, I got this.
Yeah, I think.
Does that still happen to you? Like, because you're just, I know you figured it all out. But,
I definitely don't have it figured out. I definitely do not have it figured out, but I'm
You're getting
working
there.
towards.
You're getting there, yeah.
I think focusing on
Give it another year.
I think focusing.
He's going for number 4. I'm going for number 1. He's going for number 4.
I think focusing on the process and focusing on the pursuit of mastery.
Of excellence. That's yeah.
And a byproduct of that will be putting up up poker results.
Sure.
So I think thinking about the results second, and focusing on your actual thought process and the work that you're putting in will ultimately lead you to achieving your goals.
What do you think got you to realize that? Do you think poker contributed, or do you think that anything you did prior in your life maybe helped you figure that out? Or
I think poker, because there's such a big element of luck, it's so unrealistic to attach outcome goals for individual events. You can go into.
That's a really good point.
You can go into an event thinking you're going to win, and that's great.
Yeah, but if you don't win,
but have your expectations calibrated in a way where you're not going to be crushed if you don't cash, because that just happens so often. In terms of other things that I have kind of taken this approach to, in high school I wrestled, and I'm not a very athletic person by nature, but I found this sport that I loved, and I learned that if I put the work in, I can. You kind of get you get out what you put in, and it's kind of the same way with poker, but it's less of a direct feedback with poker because of that element of luck. So you put in the work in poker, and over time, it may not be you study this spot and then you get to implement it. It may not, the spot may not come back, or you study tournament strategy, but over time, your skill set does compound.
So your mindset, and this is me. I'm trying to get into the mindset of this guy because he's quite the force at the table. I mean, you're in my in my mind. I've just got this picture taken by one of the World Poker Tour photographers. Just the stare, because the Alti stare is you kind of just want to just be prepared for it. Just the stare. But what is your mindset? So like coming into a tournament, you're coming into a series, whether or not you're playing some of the really great prelims, or whether or not you're playing some of the really great saddies into the main, or you're playing the main. You talked about recreational players, amateur players, beginners, can make kind of a mistake by thinking that they're going to win a tournament, and then when they don't, it just kind of crushes them. So how do you look at it? And so kind of like when you walk in the building, you've got home court, so you're very confident and everything. But when you walk in the building, what is your mindset for every single event, and does it change? So like, do you have a different mindset for the main? Do you have a different mindset? Mindset, I mean, also expectation to finish. Does that change between the different types of events you play, and what kind of does that look like for you?
I don't really think the mindset changes. Okay. I show up, I try and get there on time. Yeah. I try.
That's a good point, though. Yeah. So getting there on time is a good. Yeah. Because why? Why is getting there on time important?
So when you play a poker tournament, you are with a group of 8 other people, and eventually that table is going to break. And when you get there on time, you get to spend max. You get to see the most amount of hands.
Yes. And that's important because live poker is slower than online poker, which is, my roots and your roots as well. Okay, yeah.
And so I'm paying attention at the table. I'm trying to get all these data points. I'm trying to see hands that go to showdown.
Yep.
And try and extrapolate, you know,
Yep.
how people play based on how they've played previous hands.
Yep.
But in terms of expectations, I just go in and try and make good decisions and try and make decisions that I think are yielding a positive expectation of chips. And prior to the tournaments, I try and set myself up for success by getting good sleep, trying to move my body,
Good sleep, exercise
before, and just be in an overall good state.
Good state of mind.
Yeah.
What about like any kind of while you're, you know, most of the World Poker Tour events go about 2 to 3 weeks long, the series. Do you do anything while you're here? Is there any kind of workout routine or maybe meditation routine, or do you even, and I know you said you write hands down, you know, as if something comes up and then you look at them that night. I know a lot of players don't do any study, you know, when they're in the middle of the tournaments, but do you do anything physical or anything outside of poker study or analysis while you're actually, you know, in a series?
I have a routine of waking up and drinking
What's
a
your
bunch.
routine?
I wake up and I drink a bunch of coffee, listen to chill music, unwind for the first hour or so of my
it's
day.
like a mini meditation.
It's not meditation, but it's meditative for me. And then I have a mobility routine that I do.
You do?
At least a few times a week.
What does that entail?
It's a bunch of it's like leg stretches, body stretch
cool.
stuff.
So you do that like every morning when you're out on tour?
Okay. At least sometimes it's every other day, but and then I'll do.
How long does it take? Like 10 minutes, 15 minutes, or something?
It's like 30 minutes.
Oh, okay, yeah, that's good.
And then I'll do some weightlifting, but it hasn't been as of a consistent manner. But I really think the taking care of your body and taking care of your really translates into making good decisions at the table. When I take care of myself, I think much more clearer, and I really think it makes a big difference.
What about food? What are you putting in your body that helps you be the boss and the beast that you are?
I try and just eat whole foods, natural foods, not a lot of processed stuff.
Single ingredient kind of things. I'm a big fan of the single ingredient. My husband, when I'm working in my office, my husband will sneak in, and the only way when I get in the work zone, poker tournaments and stuff, also from chess tournaments, you kind of evolve into a naturally fasting individual. So many hours going without eating, and when I come off of a tour and I go home and I'm at my desk, the only way that I can eat is my husband has to slip a bowl of tomato in front of me with some balsamic, because that's like my go-to, tomato, cucumber, and but single ingredients, so I'm very similar in that I try to just stick with the fruit cups or the plain yogurt or something just similar, because the last thing you want when you're at the poker table is to start feeling bloated or brain foggish or anything like that. Do you have any kind of go-to tricks because you in particular are generally at the table for a very long time, so what kinds of snacks or pick-me-ups do you kind of keep in your backpack or anything like that?
Just like pistachios, macadamia nuts, drink black coffee. Probably drink way too much of it, but no, it's
water. Make sure you're drinking enough water. For every 2 cups of coffee, or for every 1 cup of coffee, it's equal to 2 cups of water or whatever. So you got to make sure you drink the water.
But definitely, I think it's may seem so subtle, but I really do think it makes a big difference when you're taking care of yourself. It's easier to be dialed in at the table. It's easy to maintain focus. You don't have brain fog. And so. Yeah,
for sure. All really, really good stuff. So next up for you is the $2,200, I think it's a $200K guarantee today. So this is another one of the World Poker Tour prelims down here at the Seminole Hard Rock in Southern Florida. And then are you a day 1A or a day 1B kind of guy, or are you both if necessary?
I am a day, I'm always there on day 1A. First hand of the day. I aspire to be a day 1A only guy by making
Okay.
it through,
So you have a day off.
but I am prepared to play day 1B
If you need to.
If I need to. I hope I can make it through on 1A,
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
you know, as a poker professional
Mm-hmm.
who travels to different events,
Yep.
I want to maximize my chances to win
Sure.
a World Poker Tour title.
Sure.
And sometimes that involves, you know, multiple attempts, and it's all part of the job.
Well, that's a nice thing, though, is that you can, even if it requires multiple attempts, the events are so well structured that most of the time when you're buying back in, you're still in good shape. You still have a lot of
Absolutely.
A lot of chips and a lot
The
of play.
registration periods for the World Poker Tour are quite long, and they're great.
structured well, so
Yeah,
that you're not
yeah.
just buying in with like a shoving stack or something.
Exactly.
You're still able to actually play poker and enjoy the experience. You know,
Absolutely.
maybe get a chance to sit down next to the superstars like this guy right here. Well, Brian, thank you so much for joining us today. I know you've got a tournament to play in a little bit, and I've told you this a few times, but I'm just absolutely thrilled that you've joined us at Learn WPT. I know the entire World Poker Tour universe is thrilled as well. We are just really excited to watch you throughout 2022 on your quest for World Poker Tour champion number 4. And we will be here to watch. So why don't we do this again in December for the 5 Diamond? We'll have a bunch of the Learn WPT instructors, and we'll all do one episode together, and that'll be cool.
That sounds great.
In between your final tables.
Let's book it.
Yeah.
I'm super happy to be part of the team, Team Learn WPT.
Yeah.
And it's going to be
It's gonna be a good year.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's gonna be a good year. All right, you guys, so still time to get down here to the Seminole Hard Rock in Southern Florida. The $3,500 championship event with a $2 million guarantee starts this Thursday and Friday. Or is it Friday? Yeah. Friday is day 1A, Saturday is day 1B, Sunday is day 2. There's still a bunch of Saturdays. Check the schedule. You can go to worldpokertour.com for the schedule and also the live updates. And make sure you follow us on Twitter and Instagram at LearnWPT and the WPT at the World Poker Tour. This is Katie Stone. This is Brian Altman.
Brian Altman.
We will see you guys next time. Hey everyone, and welcome back to another episode of Play Better Poker.